Hello and welcome to the Career Changers. Today, the UK Cabinet Office has launched the Civil Service Apprenticeship Strategy with the aim to emphasize quality training and set targets that will help build a more diverse pipeline of recruits into government by 2025. What does this mean? That the UK government is becoming one of the leading voices of the career changers movement, opening the door of a new career to people whose careers have been affected by the pandemic. Heather Hillier, our special guest, is one of those people, and she's here today to share her career change story. Heather is a former airline pilot who lost her job during the pandemic and embarked on a new career in government by an apprenticeship. Heather joined the Maritime and Coastguard Agency in July 2020 during lockdown. Prior to this, she was an airline captain with Flybe until the company went into administration in March 2020. Aviation has been her career path for almost 26 years. Her husband was also a captain with Flybe, so they found themselves faced with the overnight loss of their entire household income on 5th March 2020. She set out to find a job to pay the bills, but as COVID started to take hold, she realized that the impact on the aviation industry was likely to be far-reaching. This is when she started thinking about a new career. She saw the advert for a talent and development trainer with the Maritime and Coastguard Agency, which is found appealing as it was about helping people achieve their potential and making a difference in a job that mattered. Today, she's sharing her career change story with us. Hi, Heather. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Elisa. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with your background. How did you start your professional life? Or better, what was your first job?
Oh, it seems a lifetime ago. Well, my route to school used to take me around the edge of Bournemouth Airport in the back of my parents' car. And I used to look at the aeroplanes and think, that looked like a really cool job, but there'd be a reason why I couldn't do it. You know, I couldn't tell you why. I just thought, well, I won't be able to do that. And then when I was 14, I joined the Air Cadets, the Air Training Corps, and through that had my first trial flying lesson in a little single engine aircraft. And that was the moment the sort of fascination with flying started, really. I really just felt I can do this. This is something that I can do, and this is what I want to do. So my first job was working for £1 an hour, scrubbing pots and pans in the flying club kitchen on a Sunday to get some discounted flying. And yes, quite a while ago, and minimum wage I don't think was a thing back then. But I did that as a sort of 14, 15, 16-year-old. And that just saw me through and really reaffirmed that I wanted to fly. So at 16, I got my Class 1 medical to make sure that I'd be medically fit to be able to follow the airline dream. And I set myself up with my A-levels and my choices for university that airline flying is where I wanted to go. And after completing my A-levels, I went straight from school to the flight training school and got my airline transport pilot's license. Just finishing up as September the 11th happened, and the airline industry had a little bit of a dip in recruitment for a few years. I ended up working as a flying instructor and PA to head of training for a flight training school. And then in 2004, Flybe took me on, and the rest, I think, as I say, from that point of view is history. I joined them January 2004, right the way up until they ceased flying in March 2020. So 16 years with them, and about 8,000 flying hours later, I'm now a civil servant.
Well, an amazing career. So what transferable skills have you learned in your career as an airline pilot?
Oh, so many things that when I first thought, what am I going to do next? I thought, well, I'm just a pilot. What am I going to do? I'm just a pilot, because as I said, I went straight from A levels to flight training school. And once I got out of the mindset of I am just, and into the, okay, what does being a pilot actually mean? And I started looking at what I took for granted in my everyday job. And it was things like leadership and management, schedule keeping, operating in high pressure environments, customer service skills, when things weren't going quite so well, customer attention skills, communicating, influencing, when you have a crew on board and passengers that are delayed, you need to be able to get them on side and have a positive outcome from that. So so many things. And one of the things that I really look back and realized where my passion lay was, as my career progressed, sitting next to someone who was at the start of their career and helping them develop the skill sets, helping them develop their own leadership skills and knowledge. So so many skills that once you take them out of your day-to-day life, you realize actually what a tool set you have to take forward into a new environment.
Yeah, and sometimes we can be the worst judge of ourselves, because for me, saying you are an airline pilot, I find it so fascinating, and I think all our listeners think the same. And well, a woman as well, of course. So you've been an air pilot, as you mentioned, for 26 years, until that day in March 2020, when Flybe went into administration. As your husband was also a captain with Flybe, you faced overnight the loss of your entire household income. Do you remember that day, and what were your thoughts?
I think it's a day that is probably fairly well ingrained in quite a few people's minds. And it didn't actually start with just the 5th. It started in the evening of the 4th of March. In the wonderful world we live in with so much media and connectivity, we started seeing things on Twitter from passengers in Scotland saying, stickers put on the side of a Flybe aircraft. And we started getting people saying, oh, it's just a misunderstanding. And then as that evening went on, my husband was actually due to be flying at 6 o'clock the next morning. So we were trying to get an early night, trying to be well rested to operate safely the next day. But obviously your mind starts going through the what ifs. And I think that going to sleep that night, we kind of in the pit of our stomach thought something's happening here. And we woke up the next morning, the 5th of March, and we had a message that there'd be a conference call at 6 a.m. And sure enough, the conference call comes around, and it's a scripted statement, effectively saying that Flybe were in administration effective immediately, that our employment was terminated, and we sort of, that numbness really sets in there. Okay. So what are we going to do? What happens next? You're waiting for information for people to tell you what you're going to do, because I've got bills to pay, and I need to find another job. I need to get all my paperwork in order, because at that point in time, COVID was a thing that was happening at the other side of the world. There were some airline jobs available around sort of Asia that we thought, right, okay, let's get our logbooks in order. Let's get our licenses in order. Let's start putting our flying CVs together. We're going to be faced with the reality that we're potentially not going to see each other much, because the likelihood of getting a job together in the same airline with similar shift pattern was unlikely. And we started moving forward with the idea of, okay, we'll get a flying job. And one of the hardest things actually was that, because of the nature of the industry, the security clearances that you need to work on an airport, we were told we needed to go and report to our local job centre to report, being unemployed. And that in itself, I think that's when it really hit, because as someone who has always worked, the idea of going to sign on and go to the job centre was quite difficult. It was a very, very difficult experience. And I think that's when it really hit that this is happening. And we started to see the world unfold over the next 2 weeks, and then lockdown hit. And when the larger carriers, when British Airways, when Virgin, when some of the other carriers started going bust as well, we realised that the likelihood of getting an airline job anytime soon was very slim. So yeah, a bit of a blur, but a very memorable experience to go through.
So initially, after the initial state of shock, you set out to find a job to pay the bills. But as COVID started to take hold, you also realized that the impact on the aviation industry was likely to be far-reaching. At the time, probably you guess at least 2-3 years before opportunities would open up again. Now that actually is what really happened. Yeah. So what did you do next after having this realization?
Like you said, I just looked there, that 2-week period where we were in limbo, where the world hadn't quite shut down yet. We were focused on the flying, and then really it was a case of, okay, this is going to hit hard. And I thought, I need to pay the bills. It's plain and simple. We had a very comfortable lifestyle. You know, we worked hard and we enjoyed the benefits of that, and it's all gone. So I started looking through all the job boards. I started thinking about, okay, I've done administrative work before. I've been a PA. I've worked in temp agencies, just slotting into places and doing administrative work. I can absolutely do that. I've worked behind a bar. So I'll go and find something. And then I started seeing adverts for things like supermarket chains like Lidl and Aldi, looking for store managers or deputy store managers, quite a big recruitment drive. I thought, well, I can do that. I've managed an aeroplane. I can manage a supermarket. And what was quite disheartening was all these jobs where I felt I can do this, I wasn't getting any responses from. And I think that people do say, oh, you know, the overqualified bit. And I do think maybe an element of that came in, but it means nothing when actually you're sat there going, yeah, okay, I might be overqualified, but I'm prepared to do this, and I want to do this, and I need a job. So over time, my sort of expectations of salary levels started dropping. I had a minimum number that I needed to earn to pay the bills. My husband wanted to keep flying, which, you know, that's absolutely fine. And I decided that my mindset was time for something new. And then I saw the advert for the talent and development trainer job, and it was the first one that I picked up, and I actually thought, this is what I want to do. I really want this. I grabbed it and said to my husband, look, this advert's written for me. And just the way it was describing the working environment, the job role, the making a difference to people, that's when I got excited, and that's what I applied for, and that's what brought me into the Maritime and Coastguard Agency.
Yeah. And I think what you mentioned, the challenges, sometimes career changes can be overqualified, as you say, or they can have lots of experience, transferable skills. But there is this expectation, because you have a certain background, that it will be easy to find a new job, or that people will be able, recruiters, HR people will be able to identify your transferable skills. And sometimes that's not happening. And I guess, I mean, we will talk more about this later, but the civil service, through this new project that is launching, is also setting up a new mentality for companies out there to be more open to career changes. And this is what actually happened to you. So what challenges did you have to overcome to transition career? So to go from being an air pilot, you mentioned some now, like the recruiting process, or be considered as overqualified, but were there other challenges that you have to overcome to transition career?
Yes, I think looking back, at the time I was just focused on the next steps. But one thing that did really hit me, and I tried to help other colleagues, and not even my own direct colleagues, but other people impacted by COVID, is the mindset. You go through this this period of change, and it almost is like a grief cycle. It's the loss of not just a job, and certainly with careers like aviation, you know, it's a passion, and it's something you've worked really hard to get to. And you can't just pick up and move to another airline and do the same thing in the same way as perhaps if you worked in an office-based role. A lot of companies do a lot of similar things, and you can move around a little bit more easily. And it's that loss of identity that goes with it. You know, I am a pilot, and then you're not a pilot anymore. So what am I? And getting sort of through that period and really starting to understand what value you have outside of the label that you've lived with for so long. I actually ended up, because of the impact of Flybe's loss, there are a lot of really fantastic people out there through platforms like LinkedIn who offered some advice, some guidance, some support to all the Flybe members of the staff. And I actually reached out to a few of them and was quite surprised that they hadn't heard from other people, and I was the only one that had, when this was available to everyone. It was on a public platform, and it was talking to a career coach that actually helped me understand the process that I was going through. And I'd gone through well, I can get a job, you know, I'm an intelligent person, I can go out and find a job. And when it wasn't happening, that's really it starts to get to you. So talking to a career coach who helped me see my transferable skills, helped me brand my CV, and just the way that I approached trying to find a job, that really was a turning point. And I think that that's a challenge that anyone who is going through a career change, or anyone who is friends, family, supporting someone who has had that loss of a career and is looking to start again, don't think it can be underestimated, the impact that it can have on people. I think one of the challenges, and I'm very grateful to my former line manager, a lady by the name of Kathy Wilson, who very wisely said, when I was really struggling with the idea of, I'd gone from knowing my job really well, and I'd like to say was quite good at it, and being someone that people would come to and ask a question of and I knew the answer, to a whole new start where I'm with people who are brilliant and I'm looking up to them in this new world, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm learning as I go, but I'm not operating at the level I was for so long. And Kathy just said to me, you know, look, you wouldn't think it was reasonable to pick one of us up, stick us in the flight deck of an aeroplane, and expect us to fly that plane as well as you did after all that time, would you? So don't compare yourself in the same way in this new world. And I am eternally grateful to her for that piece of advice. And I think that, like you said, you know, we can be our own worst critics. Give yourself some time, accept that you're learning. You're not starting from new, you're starting from experience, but it's still a new world for you to settle into. So there are some challenges to overcome.
Yeah, your manager gave you a great piece of advice, and I think to find a supporting environment, especially after all you had to go through, and the career change itself, is definitely something that can help you to build a new career and to find more confidence. So before, you mentioned that when you saw this position advertised, you immediately say, oh, this is what I want. But did you have any knowledge actually of the civil service opportunities before? Because I remember I discovered the civil service many years ago, but at that time, it was like, oh, I would say, oh my God, these jobs, they sound amazing. I didn't know they existed. So there was any other reason specifically why you choose a civil service apprenticeship?
I knew the civil service existed, and I knew that civil servants did a lot of good work across the country and in many different ways. In fact, I think my first encounter with the idea of working for the civil service was I looked at joining the Air Accident Investigation Branch, who are also on the gov.uk website when it comes to searching. So that's what took me into the GovJob site. And I was quite surprised when you start looking at the opportunities on there, at just the amazing range. You think civil service, but it's everything. I think within the Maritime and Coastguard Agency itself, you know, the area of the civil service I have experience of, you know, we have people who work in finance, we have people who work in procurement, we have business administration units, we have press offices, marketing offices, audit, health and safety, human resources, our fantastic coastguards, our survey and inspection, the technical side of the world, navigation, IT, gosh, our IT teams that have kept us going throughout COVID. And that's, apologies if I've missed out any other areas of the business, but it's just so vast. And that is just one agency within the Department for Transport, within government. And I think that's what really opened my eyes up to the opportunities and the possibilities, and realizing as well that when you're part of such a vast organization, that you have so many more opportunities to expand your knowledge, to learn from other people. And as one of the apprenticeship providers, having that availability for funded development. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. As a career changer, I absolutely took opportunity of that, because it gave me the opportunity to get an accreditation and a qualification that goes with me wherever I go, and is recognised in learning and development. So it's just a great place to be.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the term civil service doesn't really give an idea to the outside audience to the variety of roles that are there. And so very fascinating and interesting. Like, they can really cover different fields, and really are jobs that you know, can help to make the world a better place, honestly.
Definitely.
So your experience and knowledge of human factors, leadership, and behavioral safety has helped you to be recently promoted to a new role as behavioral safety lead in the health and safety team. When did you start to feel that your new career was moving in the right direction?
That's a great question. It sounds silly, but almost from the first day I stepped into our headquarters in Southampton, I just walked in the door and saw the Royal Crest on the wall and thought, this is big, this is real, this is somewhere, I don't know, I just felt that this was a good place to be. And having a fantastic team around me, not just my direct team, but everyone I've come into contact with at the agency has been massively supportive. And the passion of the people I work with, that they really do a job that matters, no matter what grade you are, no matter what area of the business that you're working in. We save lives. That's ultimately what we do as an agency, and in so many different ways that's achieved. And I really felt that I was making a difference here. And with the support of the training and development team, who helped bring my confidence up in my new role and supported me with my apprenticeship learning, enabled me to sort of shadow and learn from them. And then the opportunity really arose to use the skills that I'd developed over the years with flying. And I really started to realize that actually they weren't wasted. Those 26 years of getting to where I was actually getting me to where I am now, and is the start of being able to move forwards as well. And I found that my real passion for the leadership and management, for helping people understand change and the behavioural elements of culture and creating a good working environment. And I'm very fortunate that the organisation recognises diverse backgrounds and can see sort of areas where people can get involved with projects and work together and get the most out of them. And that's what really started me moving forwards. And when the job was advertised that I now have, and I applied for it and went through the process, it was another moment of, I really want this. This is the direction I want to go in. So yeah.
Yeah, it's great to hear. I can really hear the hope and how your story is successful. And sometimes when we are in those darkest times, when everything goes wrong, or at least it seems so, it's difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But it's great to hear you saying, oh, then I realized that my 26 years actually were preparing me to come to this point. And generally is what happens to career changers, to have a transitioning phase where there is that moment of uncertainty. Did I waste this year? Did I do anything wrong? But many times it's just learning all the skills, building relationships that we don't know and we can't see how, but they will take us in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
So you have praised the civil service environment in the interview. I seem you're really happy there and you found very supportive people. So why would you recommend it to others?
Oh, why would I not recommend it? I think that one of the things I really value about my job is, and my career ultimately is the way I'm looking at it going forwards, the stability. Having gone through uncertainty in aviation for a number of years, and suddenly with that immense change, the civil service offers some element of stability, really. As I said, it's a big entity that once you're in, there are opportunities and pathways that you can remain within the civil service without having to leave an area that you love and take a risk going somewhere else. You have that support. Certainly I can say that within the MCA, the other elements of it, like our wellbeing and inclusion team and our networks, it's just this massive opportunity really to work with a lot of different people. And it's not just about coming into work and taking a paycheck home. It's coming into work and making a difference with the work that you do. And although I obviously speak on the work that the MCA does, the whole civil service, if you look at our Department for Work and Pensions, the DVLA, and all the other acronyms that mask under the civil service banner, everybody's there to make a difference and to make things better for not just ourselves, but for wider communities and society as a whole. And I think that in itself, when you can come to work and leave work at the end of the day knowing you've made a difference, that's a really massive feeling.
Yeah. So do you think the new strategy, the new government strategy, will encourage more people to change careers and take up a civil service apprenticeship?
I'd like to think with awareness of apprenticeships that people can start looking at them and actually really understanding what they are. Because I certainly, on my first day in the job and someone mentioned apprenticeship, I thought, well, isn't that what you do instead of going to school? You go to learn how to fix cars or be a mechanic or a carpenter or something. It was the sort of skilled trades. And I very quickly understood that apprenticeships are available to people already working within an organisation to build their accreditations, their knowledge and their skills. And I'm hoping that the new strategy will help to provide people with awareness of apprenticeships, and also for people like myself who are making a career change. One of the biggest things that it's brought me is embedding myself into the language of my new world. All those little acronyms and models and theories that I've learned as a result of my apprenticeship course, that I've now come in and used them in my job. When people start to realize that you can work, you're earning money, you have time allotted in agreement with your employer to help you do your learning instead of having to do it all, after a full-time job, doing it in evenings and weekends. That's not what it's about. And you're actually applying your learning. So actually it embeds a lot better. You are using it as you go. And I think that when people start to really understand what opportunities are there with apprenticeships, that they will hopefully start to see that I'm not maybe happy where I am, but I want to move and do something new. And there is an opportunity to do this with an apprenticeship within my organisation or in a new one. And yeah, take the opportunities, go and explore them.
Yeah, it sounds a great opportunity, and definitely the word apprenticeship probably is not has this little bit of stigma around where adult people may feel, oh, this is something that you just do when you're very young. But it's great to know that there are opportunities out there where career changers can find a new path, new careers, and explore new avenues with the support of having a salary, of course, as well. We all need when we are adults.
I don't think people realise that you can do a degree through an apprenticeship. So it's not just your foundation things. The course that I've done is a level 5 qualification, so it's a foundation degree level learning. And I think people are quite shocked when they find that one out, especially if you're working in a place where a degree is a requirement for your next step up the ladder. This is a way that you can get that while still working.
So I'm sure that many career changers that will start to research for this now, because it sounds very, very interesting and appealing. So we often forget how each of us with our choices can have a positive impact in the world. How do you feel your career changes made the world a better place?
Well, I hope it's made the world a better place, at least for one or two people, if not more. For me directly, I have been very active in trying to support others who are going through the similar things that I went through. And I think I'm up to 8 people now who I've directly helped, talked to, looked at their CVs, helped them prepare for interviews and things like that, who have gone on and have found a new job. So I'm actually proud of that as an individual. But in terms of my actual career change, how it's helped make the world a better place, I think the thing that surprised me the most is the things I took for granted in my old world, the things that aviation does not sort of naturally, that reporting culture, the behavioural safety, and that human factors and human element, which is the world that I'm now in. All those things I've done habitually for 20 years are kind of new in a new environment, and I'm able to bring that to a new environment, to a new audience, and give some ideas to people that perhaps have not come across these concepts before, and hopefully drive some positive change, not just within my organisation, but for everyone that I speak to about it. They then speak to more people and speak to more people, and certainly with the behavioural safety elements, if it helps make people's lives safer and healthier, then that can only be a good thing.
Yeah. So, well, I'm really enjoying this conversation with you, and I think you're inspiring all the career changers, or many of the career changers out there, to look into this new opportunity that is open to many people. So what advice would you give to anyone looking to change their career to take up the civil service apprenticeship?
Go out there, research it. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to try. And you're surprised at what you find out sometimes. And I certainly went down a lot of, I think the expression is rabbit holes. I click on one link and go, oh, that's interesting. And there's another link and another link and another link. And you learn so much through that route. And I guess the thing is, don't be afraid. We find ourselves getting into the habit in life and getting into our comfort zone and doing the same thing day in, day out because it's easy and we know it. And actually, you can be quite surprised at the opportunities that are out there if you look a little bit outside of your comfort zone. I think the expression is that growth happens outside your comfort zone, and I can certainly say my brain feels switched on in a way it hasn't for a number of years with all the learning.
So we are approaching the end of these episodes now, but before I ask you the last question, is there anything we haven't covered that you would like to put across? Anything else that you would like to add to our listeners?
Oh gosh, just if you're out there and you are either in the position where you have to change careers, or you're thinking about it but you're not certain, reach out to the people that are offering support. The fact that you're even listening to the podcast in the first place, thank you if I've still got you here, that shows that you're interested in it and it's playing in your mind. And there's obviously sort of a little niggle there thinking, do I want to make a change? And like I said, there's so many platforms and avenues out there, and there's so many fantastic people offering advice and guidance for free. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask for that help. Even if you think, you know what, I know how to write a CV, I know how to apply for a job. There's always something new that you can learn perhaps from someone else. So yeah, be cautious with who you take advice and guidance from sometimes, but go and research it and reach out your hand, and you'd be surprised how many people will be there to try and help you along.
So let's go to the last question now that we ask to all the guests on the Career Changers podcast. If you could give yourself a piece of advice, what would you say to your younger self?
Oh gosh, apart from don't eat all the cakes. I'd say that there's been so many things along my path so far that I've learned from, and so many bits of advice and guidance I want to give myself. But I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to try. If there's something you really want or there's something you're really interested in, don't be afraid to ask the questions, to go for it. And you know what? If you go for it and it works, fantastic. But equally, if you try and it doesn't work out as you hope, or it hasn't quite come to fruition, pick yourself up and think, what can I learn from that? What can I take away from that? It's not a failure. It's an opportunity for something that I've learned how to not do something, or that I can take forward and do better next time. And I think it was Thomas Edison that said, I haven't failed, I found 10,000 ways that don't work. And that's always stuck with me. And I'd say that's my biggest bit of advice, is don't be afraid to try.
Beautiful, that quote. I like it. Well, thank you, Heather, so much for joining us today and sharing your inspirational career change story.
Thank you, and good luck, everyone.
Thank you. And the last message for our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tune in next week for a new inspirational episode of the Career Changers.